Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your questions, find the best sources, and we'll dive deep so you can get up to speed fast.
And today, we're looking into reverse aging and longevity. This was sparked by a really interesting YouTube interview with Dr. David Sinclair that one of you actually sent over.
Yeah, our listener, the learner, wanted the core ideas from Sinclair, without getting totally lost in the heavy science.
Right. So our goal here is to make his concepts clear, practical, and hopefully pretty engaging for you.
Exactly. And Sinclair's main point, the thing he keeps circling back to, is that our modern lives, they're maybe too comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Biologically lazy almost.
Yeah. And to really live well, live longer, we need to kind of reactivate these old survival programs our bodies have.
Ancient survival mechanisms, yeah. So, okay, let's start with this key idea he brings up right away. Hormesis.
Hormesis, okay.
Basically, it boils down to that old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's a biological thing where small doses of stress actually trigger protective responses.
Which, when you think about it, makes perfect evolutionary sense. Our ancestors, they had it rough.
Definitely. Cold, hunger, always moving.
Right. Constant challenges.
Yes.
And our bodies didn't just survive. They got, better because of that stress. More resilient.
Exactly. So the takeaway is a bit of discomfort. It's not necessarily bad. It can actually be good for you long term.
Our bodies evolved expecting adversity.
And now we have central heating, food on demand, cars.
Yeah.
We sit a lot.
Total contrast.
Oh.
And this comfort, while nice, means those protective systems, they just kind of lie dormant. They get complacent.
Yeah, they're not getting the signals they evolved to respond to.
So how do we, gently push our bodies out of that easy chair? What kind of stressors is Sinclair talking about?
Well, exercise is a classic one. Pushing yourself physically creates that temporary stress, signals repair, makes you stronger.
Okay, makes sense.
And the other big one he emphasizes is skipping meals. That's another key hormetic stressor.
All right, eating less often, which connects directly to his big recommendation for longevity. It's maybe one of the simplest things we can do.
He literally says, eat less often. That's the core advice.
So what's happening inside when we do that? What signals does that send?
According to Sinclair, this kind of mild hunger switches on three main longevity pathways. Sirtuins, mTOR, and AMPK.
Okay, those names sound complex.
Yeah, the names don't matter as much as what they do. Think of sirtuins as the cellular repair crew, always fixing things.
Got it. Repair crew.
mTOR is more like a growth sensor. It knows when there are plenty of nutrients, especially protein, around, signals growth.
Okay, growth sensor. And AMPK.
AMPK is the energy regulator. It notices when energy, like sugar, is low, and it kicks things into gear, boosts efficiency.
So eating less, exercising, that's basically telling these systems, okay, time to defend and repair.
Precisely. You're activating your body's built-in defense and maintenance programs.
And he mentioned a study back in 2005 about SRT1, one of those sirtuin repair guys. That was apparently a big deal.
Oh, huge. That paper showed when animals had their calories restricted, just ate less, their SIRT-T1 activity shot way up.
And SIRT-T1 is a key longevity gene.
Yeah, seen as really protective. They also saw lower insulin, lower levels of something called IGF-1, which is linked to growth, and better protection against DNA damage.
Wow. So lower IGF-1 is good for longevity.
Generally, yes. High levels are more associated with growth, lower levels with maintenance and longevity. That study really showed diet could directly influence these fundamental genetic pathways.
So skipping meals is basically mimicking calorie restriction, telling our bodies, okay, shift gears, protect and repair.
Exactly.
Now, people talk about intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, lots of terms. How does Sinclair see all that?
Fundamentally, he sees them as different methods to achieve the same thing, giving your body longer breaks from processing food.
So it's less about the specific label, more about the break.
Yeah, call it IF, call it TRE. The point is to create those periods where your digestive system isn't constantly working.
He mentioned a really interesting mouse study, too, from the NIH, Rafael de Cabo. It wasn't just what they ate, but when.
That one was fascinating.
Oh.
They had thousands of mice, different diets controlled carbs, protein, fat. Some could eat whenever, others only had a 1-hour window each day.
Just 1 hour.
Yep. And the mice that ate all their food in that single hour lived significantly longer. And this held true regardless of the diet composition. Same total calories, but the timing made a huge difference for longevity in those mice.
That is powerful. So it's not just about overall calories, it's about consolidating the eating window. What's his practical advice then? How do we start?
He suggests finding what fits your life. Not hungry for breakfast, maybe skip that. Dinner less important? Try skipping that.
What does he do?
He personally skips lunch. He says he saves time, saves money, actually enjoys his other meals more, and gets more energy, avoids that afternoon slump.
That makes sense. He also mentioned that evolutionary angle, right? That maybe we're actually sharper mentally when slightly hungry. Like our ancestors needed focus to find food.
Exactly. A slightly hungry brain might have been a very focused brain back then. You needed to be alert.
And intermittent fasting, it's like huge now, isn't it?
He calls it the most popular diet in the world. He really hopes it's more than just a trend.
But he did have a word of caution about kids, right? About the 3 meals plus snacks habit.
Yes, definitely. He worries that constant eating pattern can lead to too many calories for children. He also brought up this idea of epigenetic memory, meaning that what happens early in life, nutritionally, can leave a kind of lasting mark on how our genes work later on. Childhood obesity might have long-term effects programmed in. So while adults might benefit from eating less often, kids need consistent fuel for growth.
Okay, good distinction. So just to recap, intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, Sinclair sees them as ways to eat less often. And he personally eats in about a 2-hour window.
That's his routine now, yeah. But he really stresses, start slow, let your body adapt.
How long does that take?
It can take up to a month, maybe. Your liver needs to get better at managing glucose release between meals. And your gut microbiome, all those bacteria needs to adjust too.
Right, the microbiome. Okay, so we stress the body a bit by eating less often, activating these survival mechanisms, which brings us back to longevity genes. But he says maybe that's not the best term.
Yeah, he prefers survival genes or even adversity genes.
Why the change?
Because evolutionarily, the main goal isn't living to 150. It's surviving long enough to reproduce.
Okay.
These genes, which are incredibly old and found across species yeast, worms, herbs, they're designed to help organisms withstand tough times. Longevity, living healthier for longer, is more like a really great side effect of keeping these genes active.
A beneficial side effect.
Okay.
And the 3 main pathways they influence are those ones again. Sirtuins, mTOR, AMPK. Let's dig into sirtuins first. What's their job?
Sirtuins are like master regulators of cell health. They protect against damage, help with repairs, reduce inflammation. They're even linked to better memory.
Oh, busy guys.
Very. But they need fuel to work. That fuel is a molecule called NAD+A. Think of NAD+ as the battery powering the repair crew.
Okay, NAD+A.
And Sinclair's lab does a lot of work with NMN, which is a precursor molecule our body uses to make NAD+A. They've seen giving NMN to mice boosts their NAD+ levels and seems to improve their health and lifespan.
Interesting. Okay, next one, mTOR. What's its role?
mTOR stands for mammalian target of rapamycin. It mainly senses protein intake, specifically certain amino acids common in meat.
So it knows when we eat protein.
Pretty much. High protein mTOR signals grow, build. Low protein, like during fasting, mTOR activity goes down, and that helps trigger the survival and repair stuff.
And there's a drug related to it, rapamycin.
Yeah. Rapamycin inhibits mTOR. At low doses, it's been shown to extend lifespan in lots of different organisms, from yeast to mice.
Fascinating. And the last one, AMPK.
AMPK is the energy sensor. It keeps track of sugar levels, basically. When sugar and insulin are low, AMPK ramps up.
And what does that do?
It leads to making more mitochondria. Those are the cell's power plants, and it reduces inflammation.
And there's a drug for that too, metformin.
Right. The common diabetes drug metformin boosts AMPK. And studies show people taking it tend to have lower rates of other age-related diseases too, not just diabetes.
So these 3 sirtuins, mTOR, AMPK plus exercise, and eating less often. Those are the main levers Sinclair sees for potentially adding, 15, 20 years or more?
That's the potential he discusses, yes. These are the key biological pathways we can influence through lifestyle and maybe someday through targeted therapies.
Which leads to another huge idea he puts forward, that aging itself is the root cause of most chronic diseases. That really resonates with what you often see, right? The common threads between different conditions.
Absolutely. It's something clinicians notice. Patients with heart disease often have insulin resistance, maybe early signs of cognitive decline, inflammation markers are up. It all seems connected.
It's not just separate problems.
Exactly. Sinclair takes it a step further. He says the well-known hallmarks of aging, things like mitochondria getting sluggish, telomeres shortening, DNA damage accumulating, they all have these upstream controllers. Sirtuins, mTOR, AMPK.
So those pathways are driving the hallmarks.
They're regulating the processes that lead to those hallmarks. So he argues aging isn't just something that happens, it's the unifying cause underlying most diseases and disabilities that plague us later in life.
And he points out that medicine, historically, hasn't really looked at it that way. We classify diseases by symptoms, often late-stage symptoms.
Right, based on 19th century classifications, really. It's like fixing leaky pipes and rusty panels on a car without addressing the overall aging and wear that's causing all the problems.
So we need a shift from treating diseases after they appear to tackling aging itself preventatively.
That's his argument, a fundamental overhaul in medicine to address the root causes. He strongly believes aging should be formally recognized as a medical condition.
Just classify aging as a disease.
Or at least a treatable medical condition. He thinks that formal recognition could unlock a lot. Doctors might then feel more comfortable prescribing things like metformin, not just for diabetes, but proactively for longevity. Insurance might cover it.
That would be a massive shift,
Yeah.
making preventative aging medicine mainstream.
It could be. And tied into this is another cool idea, actually measuring our biological age.
Right. Not just how many birthdays you've had, but how old your body acts.
Exactly. He pictures a future with like wearable patches or simple home tests, maybe a mouth swab, giving you real-time data on your biological age.
Imagine your doctor saying, okay, you're 55 chronologically, but your biological age is tracking more like 48. Keep up the good work. Or the reverse.
Right. It gives you a personalized score, a dynamic measure of health. It could be incredibly motivating. He told a story about a BBC documentary where telling people their biological age really spurred them to change their habits.
Like the dashboard in your car, right?
Yeah.
You need to know your speed, your fuel. Why not have that for your body?
Great analogy. He uses a service called Inside Tracker himself. He co-founded it, actually. Monitors his blood biomarkers over time. He says he's seen his biological age metrics improve over the last 12 years.
And he's working on making this more accessible, a cheaper test.
Yeah, a lower cost test using a mouth swab. There's a wait list on his website, drsinclair.com. The idea is to use AI to analyze the results and give personalized advice.
So how do they measure it? You mentioned blood biomarkers and epigenetics, DNA methylation.
Two main ways, yeah. Blood biomarkers are things we can measure in blood cholesterol, inflammation markers, hormones that give clues about aging. Epigenetic markers like DNA methylation are different.
How so?
They're chemical tags on the DNA. They don't change the underlying genetic code, the letters, but they control which genes get read, turned on or off in different cells. And these methylation patterns change predictably as we age.
He had that analogy. The genome is the CD, the DNA itself.
Right, the digital information, the music.
And the epigenome, the methylation tags, is like the CD player, reading the music.
Exactly. And aging, in this view, is like scratches accumulating on the CD. The player can't read the information correctly anymore. Genes get turned on or off when they shouldn't.
So age reversal is like polishing the CD.
Polishing the scratches, yeah. Allowing the correct genes to be read again. And lifestyle choices, diet, exercise, maybe supplements, they help slow down the scratching process.
Which brings us to maybe the most mind-bending part. He says reversing aging isn't just theory. He calls it an incredible fact based on lab work.
That's a strong claim, yeah. He bases it on his lab's work, published in top journals like Nature. They've done epigenetic reprogramming in mice.
What kind of results?
Pretty stunning stuff, reversing blindness from glaucoma and old age, improving dementia symptoms, apparently controlling the aging clock forwards and backwards, even restoring memory in old mice.
Wow. So the idea is treat the aging, and the age-related diseases might just resolve.
That's the ultimate goal, treat the cause, not just the downstream symptoms.
When does this aging clock actually start ticking?
According to the epigenetic clock, right from conception, basically, it ticks fastest when we're young and growing, then slows down.
So when should we start thinking about this stuff? Intervention.
He suggests lifestyle changes are beneficial starting in your 20s or 30s. But again, caution with kids, they need nutrients for growth, so no extreme fasting. He started his own focus around 34, wishes he'd known this stuff at 24.
And he feels it's made a difference for him personally.
He does. He mentions being 52 with no gray hair, no hair loss, not many wrinkles, and credits his practices, though obviously genetics play a role too.
Sure. But these ideas are still pretty out there for a lot of people. Does he get pushback? Skepticism?
Oh, absolutely. He talks about it. He says his drive to educate comes from wanting to explain these complex ideas simply, use stories, make it accessible, because, yeah, there's skepticism.
It's interesting how people react to the idea of living longer. If you just ask, how long do you want to live?
Yeah.
You get all sorts of answers. 80, 100.
Right. But then Sinclair adds the condition. What if you could be healthy, vibrant, engaged right up until the end? Suddenly, more people seem interested in more years.
It tackles that fear of just lingering, frail for decades.
Exactly. That's the common misconception. Longer life equals longer decrepitude. He uses his dad as an example. 82 years old, fitter than ever, active, started a new career.
That's amazing.
It paints a totally different picture of aging potential. His point is, why would you want to check out at 80 if you're healthy and loving life?
Makes sense. So he breaks down interventions into levels. Level 1 is the foundation, right? Prevention through lifestyle.
Yep. Level 1 is the stuff most people can start doing. Skipping some meals, eating a healthy diet, he leans towards Mediterranean style and getting regular exercise, including some high intensity and some strength work.
Okay, let's unpack that Mediterranean style diet a bit more. What does that look like for him?
He describes it as more rabbit's dinner than lion's meal. So heavy on the plants, vegetables, legumes, fruits, whole grains, smaller amounts of fish, shellfish, maybe chicken. Red meat is rare.
Why less meat? Back to mTOR.
Partly, yeah. Lower animal protein intake tends to keep mTOR signaling lower, which favors those longevity pathways. Also, limiting sugar and processed carbs is key. And watching out for hidden sugars in sauces, dressings.
He uses a glucose monitor.
A continuous glucose monitor, yeah. To see in real time how foods affect his blood sugar. Very data-driven approach.
And olive oil. He mentioned that specifically.
Big fan of olive oil. Research suggests compounds in it can activate sirtuins. He often takes his morning supplements mixed with olive oil or yogurt.
Why mix them?
For absorption. He says things like resveratrol, quercetin, fisetin. These plant compounds are like brick dust on their own, hard for the body to absorb. The fat in olive oil or yogurt helps get them into your system.
Ah, okay. And those plant compounds, resveratrol from red wine, quercetin, fisetin, they've shown promise in simpler organisms.
Yeah, they extend lifespan in things like yeast and worms. He has this theory, xenohermesis.
They what?
Xenohermesis. The idea is plants make these compounds when they're stressed. Drought, sun, pests. When we eat these stressed plant molecules, it might signal our bodies that times are tough, triggering our own defenses.
Huh. Like a warning signal from the plants.
Sort of, yeah. A cross-species stress signal. Which also makes you wonder about organic or local produce. Maybe they have more of these compounds because they face more natural challenges. He notes vibrant color is often a good sign.
Interesting thought. Now, he contrasts his approach with something like keto, short-term versus long-term.
Right. He acknowledges keto might have benefits, but suggests there might be a long-term trade-off. High protein, high growth signals might be good for building muscle short-term, but maybe not optimal for longevity compared to an approach that cycles between feeding and fasting, keeping mTOR lower overall.
And his energy levels are good with his way.
He says they're very consistent, yeah.
Okay, let's talk exercise more.
Yeah.
Minimum is just move, but optimal. He mentioned high intensity.
Yeah, high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, getting breathless for short periods, maybe 10 minutes a few times a week. He mentioned that research showing older muscle can get into this weird state, like it's not getting enough oxygen.
Pseudohypoxia, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if oxygen is there, HIT helps combat that. And interestingly, NMN in mouse studies helped grow new blood vessels in muscle, improved their endurance.
So exercise plus NMN might be synergistic.
Seems possible, yeah. Best results often come from combining approaches, and he really emphasizes strength training too.
Why strength training specifically?
Crucial as we age. Prevents falls, which are a huge issue. Also helps maintain muscle mass and regulate hormones like testosterone.
People worry about protein though, especially older adults losing muscle, sarcopenia. Can you get enough protein if you're eating mostly plants?
He argues yes. It's a bit of a myth you need massive amounts of protein shakes. Plant sources provide protein, maybe with fewer of those branched-chain amino acids that really spike mTOR, and his dad is proof building muscle effectively in his 80s on a similar diet with strength training. Good point. What about something like marathon running? Is that too much stress?
It's definitely a stressor. How your body responds might be individual, but he does note that many long-distance runners and cyclists show good longevity. There's ongoing human research looking at NMN and endurance too. Some early anecdotes are positive.
Okay. Diet, exercise, foundational. Now, supplements. He's open about what he takes. Can you remind us?
Sure. He lists in his book Lifespan. It's those plant polyphenols, resveratrol, quercetin, fisetin mixed with yogurt or olive oil, then NMN, 1 gram in the morning, and metformin, but he takes it every other night.
He had some cautions though, right?
Definitely. Start slow, know your baseline, get blood tests, talk to your doctor, especially before starting prescription meds like metformin. And he points out the supplement industry isn't tightly regulated, so quality can vary. Be careful where you buy from.
An Inside Tracker, the company he co-founded, that helps with the baseline.
Yeah, it tracks those wellness and longevity biomarkers, uses algorithms based on medical literature, and gives personalized diet, exercise, and supplement recommendations to help you optimize your numbers.
Let's circle back to metformin. Improves insulin sensitivity. Maybe works partly via the gut microbiome.
That's one theory, yeah. It might beneficially alter gut bacteria, like increasing Akkermansia mucinifila. Another idea is it slightly inhibits mitochondria, creating a mild stress hormesis again that signals the body to make more efficient mitochondria.
So a tiny bit of inefficiency makes the system stronger overall.
Potentially. There's some debate about whether it might slightly blunt strength gains if taken right before exercise, so taking it after might be better for athletes.
What's his general take on who should consider it?
He seems to think it's worth considering preventatively for many people over 40, given its safety record, low cost, and potential benefits beyond diabetes. But again, under doctor supervision, there are still barriers with doctors prescribing it off-label and insurance covering it.
But people are seeking it out anyway.
There's definitely a trend towards consumers accessing it through online platforms, and he really underscores the microbiome's importance. Overall diet hugely impacts it. He even jokes he can't really digest big steaks anymore. His gut has adapted.
Okay, another big lifestyle piece. Sleep. Short-term stress. Okay, sleep deprivation, definitely not.
No, absolutely crucial. He mentions that rat study sleep deprivation led to type 2 diabetes in just 2 weeks. It's seriously detrimental.
And it connects back to the aging clock, to sirtuins.
Directly. ART1, that key sirtuin, helps regulate our circadian rhythm, our sleep-wake cycle. Poor sleep messes up all the repair processes that happen overnight. And as RT1 levels can decline with age or obesity, that can worsen sleep, creating a vicious cycle.
So sleep and longevity are tightly interwoven.
Completely. He admits he struggles with sleep sometimes himself, uses blue light blocking glasses at night, avoids stressful emails late, maybe uses things like L-theanine or melatonin occasionally.
So prioritizing sleep is non-negotiable.
It really is. And maybe, just maybe, if age reversal technologies work, they might even improve sleep quality as a side effect. NMN and resveratrol seem to help sleep rhythms in mice.
Interesting. What about stress? We know hormesis involves acute stress, but what about the chronic kind?
Yeah, big difference. Acute stress, like exercise, good. Chronic, relentless stress, like a demanding job or a difficult relationship, that accelerates aging. Definitely bad.
How does he manage it, given his high-profile work?
He talks about gaining perspective, especially after his mother passed away, focusing on what's important, finding purpose, trying not to sweat the small stuff. Easier said than done, of course.
For sure, which leads to that bigger picture. Meaning and purpose?
Yeah.
It's not all just biology, is it?
No, he touches on that. Reflecting on life being short, living intentionally. He brings up that Harvard study on war vets, the ones with strong social connections, supportive partners. They lived significantly longer.
Social connection matters that much.
Hugely. Loneliness is emerging as a major risk factor for poor aging. He suggests ways to combat it. Use the internet, get a pet, reconnect with old friends, find community. He even had this interesting idea about government supporting skilled battles, helping people pivot careers later in life, find new challenges and purpose, keep them engaged.
Now, Sinclair's idea is pretty bold. He must get criticism.
Oh, yeah. Scientific, ethical, even from family initially. He mentioned his daughter Alex was skeptical at first.
She came around.
Totally. She's now doing longevity research herself, studying naked mole rats, which are fascinatingly long-lived. He says he deals with criticism by focusing on the goal, reducing suffering, improving well-being. It's about quality of life.
So putting it all together, what does he think is realistic for lifespan? Have his predictions changed?
They seem to have become more ambitious over time. He thinks just applying current lifestyle knowledge could realistically add 15 healthy years for many. Then you add potential drugs like metformin or rapamycin.
And then the age reversal tech.
That's the potential game changer. He thinks reaching 100 is realistic now for many adopting these strategies. Looking further out, with advances, he talks about 150 plus not being out of the question, maybe even for people alive today living into the 22nd century.
Wow. But that raises the big questions. Overpopulation, resources.
He addresses those, compares it to fears about London's growth in the 1800s. Science and engineering found solutions. He points out population growth is leveling off globally anyway, likely peaking around 10 billion.
And economically.
He argues the savings from keeping people healthier longer would be enormous trillions in the US alone. That money could solve other problems. The issue now is our healthcare system is geared towards treating sickness, not preventing aging, and capitalism sometimes incentivizes unhealthy consumption. It's tricky.
What about things like seed oils? Does he have a take on those?
He mentions there isn't much specific research on their link to aging pathways per se. We know saturated and hydrogenated fats aren't great. He personally switched to supplements high in oleic acid like olive oil, but it highlights the need for more basic aging research funding is still relatively low.
And one last thing people often ask about cold and heat: saunas, ice baths.
Yeah, he acknowledges the evidence now. Saunas, those finished studies showing links to better cardiovascular health. Heat triggers heat shock proteins linked to longevity in animals.
And cold.
Cold exposure can activate brown fat, which is metabolically healthy, burns energy, secretes good stuff. Cold also boosts SRT3, another sirtuin. He used to do cold baths and saunas himself more regularly. It fits the Hormesis model.
So it really feels like we have more control than maybe we thought. These daily choices,
Yeah,
they add up.
they really do. Diet, exercise, stress, sleep, not smoking, moderate alcohol. These aren't revolutionary ideas, but Sinclair's work highlights why they work on a deep biological level, and the potential payoff, maybe decades of extra healthy life, is huge. Plus, the science coming down the pike.
It is an incredibly exciting time, isn't it? The potential to really change how we age. It definitely makes you want to learn more and take some action.
Absolutely. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge and making informed choices for your own health span.
Well, thank you for walking us through all that. That was a true deep dive. Join us next time as we explore another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious.